All right, thank you for tuning in to a Global from Asia Investments video series. Today is one of our first videos we're doing on blockchain and this new technology with Nynja. It's a new startup that's exciting to me, and we have the founders and one of their advisors discussing just some of the new trends as well as talking about what they're offering into the market. Let's tune in.
All right, good afternoon, guys, and great to be here with you. And Alex, in particular, thank you for coming to Shenzhen. It's your first trip, I understand?
Yes, I'm really enjoying the city. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. It's a city of the future, they say, Shenzhen. So, as you know, Marshall and I have been here for many years, so it's great to be able to bring, some leading industry people here and have some great conversations about what's happening in this space. So, there's three things I'd like to try and cover today, if we could, in this chat. And the first is centralization versus decentralization, sort of where we are in the transition in this industry, where we are and where we're going. The second thing I'd like to try and cover is the global digital economy in general and where are we going, in particular looking at labor and the future of labor, the future of work. And the third thing I think that we should try and cover, and these are all themes that I think are prominent in the industry, the third thing I'd like to cover is ownership over your own data, ownership over your own money, and ownership generally over your keys when we're talking about blockchain.
Great, I love all these topics.
Great, well let's start with centralization and decentralization. Where are we and where are we
Sure.
going?
So I gave a talk today at your, you created the opportunity for that, and I talked about Web 2.0 dominating the world today.
Right.
You have these apps dominating the world, and companies like Apple in the App Store and Google having these companies that are approaching $1 trillion in valuation. You can add them all up, $3-4 trillion for these Web 2.0 apps.
Yeah.
And at some point in the future, we might see a world 10 years or so from now, 15 years from now, where we have all these Web 3.0 distributed apps or dApps.
Right.
And I see that Nynja, the sponsor of the event today, is a very good company to look at as an archetypal thought leader in Web 2.5, where some things are centralized and held in what I would call the tight pile, and then other things are decentralized and held in the loose pile, where they're open. And I think you have to have that balance as we try to figure out how we transition from Web 2.0 to 3. So I think that Nynja is a very good company for the blockchain industry. And I also think it's fun because it's here in China.
Yeah.
And I think that Nynja is the only company whose management has Westerners who've lived in China combined for over 50 years. So that's a lot of time to observe centralization, and yet yourselves be decentralized. Yeah, so you're decentralized from your host countries of United States and Canada, but you're in a country that likes to centralize where it can for a variety of reasons. I mean, it's hard to manage over 1 billion people.
Sure.
And so I guess that Web 2.5, so I would ask you, Marshall, what things does or will be centralized in Nynja, and what things are decentralized?
Right, yeah, and this whole idea of 2.5 is quite interesting, and I think if you look at nature, right, and I mean, human beings, I mean, we can only strive to be as efficient as nature, and nature has.
I'm a big fan of biomimicry.
There you go, and I mean, I think we can all agree. I mean, nature basically is decentralized, but then within the decentralized nature of the way the world works organically, but then you have things like ant colonies, right? Which are highly centralized, even though it's within the broader concept of how nature works without any control point. So I like to think of Nynja kind of like that. There's things like, for example, smart contracts that are decentralized and on the blockchain. There's things like reputation, which can be foolproof and immutable that are appropriate on the blockchain. There's other things, that like communications, for example, which privacy and security are important, but actually decentralized. I mean, decentralized comes with a cost. The cost of decentralization is time and latency, and there's a lot less
latency in achieving consensus.
That's right. So let's use, when I think about Nynja, what should be centralized and what should be decentralized, is I try to think about, well, what are the things that benefit from consensus, and anything that benefits from consensus should be decentralized, and anything that's just about getting the data from point A to point B and consensus is not really needed, well then why take on the latency required, right?
Oh,
so
that's
that's kind of a 2.5, as you said, which I like.
Great.
Yeah. Well, that could transition into the next part of the conversation, which is the global digital economy. And there are, of course, are parts of that digital economy that are centralized and many that are decentralizing. And the one part of that economy that Nynja is really focused on is labor and the future of work.
Well, one of the things that I think the press has always gotten wrong, and it's 9 years now, so it's not really forgivable, is this idea that Bitcoin uses more electricity than pick a country, Ireland or something,
Iceland,
as if all that's required.
Right.
In fact, you only need one child running a laptop that's required to produce the next block every 10 minutes or so. But it's the equality of opportunity, and it's the permissionless nature of being able to apply to be a producer of that next block that makes it fascinating and very open. So what I saw, and correct me, but I see within Nynja is the potential for what we could call permissionless employment, in the sense that somebody puts up a job or queues up a job, and then somebody can, with the right qualifications and the right numbers, can go in and take that job. So you can all of a sudden, you stop the evaluation part. And you basically have, if the job is up there and you meet the credentials, you just get it. So you can just be processing out these jobs.
Take the friction out of it.
Yeah, and part of the friction and part of the lag and part of the latency of the labor market is 6 months to get a job.
Right.
I mean, oh my God, what a productivity killer. Yeah. And if you transition and you're changing a job I think millennials are changing jobs every 2 years on average. Yep. So if you're having to spend 6 months between jobs, and then you have this increasing fraction of the world that's in the gig economy. And this was predicted by the science fiction writer Greg Bear in Queen of Angels and the book Slant. It's just like the title is just The Slant. Right. And he's talking about all these people that the vast majority of people in the future will be freelancers. So what I saw within the Nynja paradigm of tools is tools that are supporting the gig economy and reducing the friction. And just like one of the most fascinating things about the crypto and the blockchain world is permissionless blockchains. I love the idea, and maybe I'm overreading what I've heard, but of permissionless employment. Do you think that potential is there within Nynja?
Well, exactly, and it's the core tenet, because in fact, if you look at the whole concept of permissioned versus permissionless, look at what the internet really did. It basically made communication permissionless, right? And the amount of
publishing too.
That's right,
yeah.
publishing and
Good point.
media, and right, and so
Yeah.
so you went from in the past where you just had a few people, kind of controlling the message. I grew up with channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then cable came out, and then but later YouTube and all these things, and and now anybody can get the message out about anything, and but we're still kind of stuck in the employment model of just a few people kind of dictating who gets the jobs, and look, if it was better that way, well then okay, but it's not better that way. AI has come a long way. There's already, for example, I've already read yesterday that a radiologist is not as efficient as AI in detecting, tumors in.
Well, in fact, I can give you the stats for that. So as of last year was the first year that an AI radiologist that's trained with convolutional neural nets is able to do an assessment that would take a human 300 seconds, right? That can actually do it in 0.2 of a second and have a better diagnosis as judged by.
Exactly.
So when you can do something in less than 1% of the time and have a superior performance, you're reducing the latency. And ultimately, one of the things that I was saying today in my talk to your audience was that one of the 3 ultimate purposes of the blockchain is to minimize the latency in achieving consensus.
Exactly.
And so it seems like you're doing that, the consensus required for employment and tasks and giving someone compensated work.
Exactly, and so there's basically 2 things, with Nynja that we're trying to do is, one is we're trying to make it that the best person gets the job. And in the traditional way, new people who are coming into the economy with less experience per se, they typically have to crash their price in order to get their first jobs. I think that's bad. We want people to be well compensated generally, and we want to move the freelance networks of the world more toward higher level services. So we need to find a way to get people to achieve consensus technologically, where the best people are assigned to the best jobs that they're suited for, without people in the middle. So that's point 1, and that's the decentralization and the permissionless, if you will, of employment. The second thing is simply there could be hundreds of millions of more jobs that are actually needed but they're not being brought into existence because it's too much of a pain in the butt. And an example is, even just the other day, we have our white paper in English. Every time we need to release the new version of the white paper, we always have to get it translated into Japanese and into Chinese and to all these other languages. That process is always so cumbersome. You have to find the people, you have to this and that, and sometimes people don't have the time, and it's very complicated. But in Nynja, where you just hold down the file and you just say, look, I need this translated, and just let Nynja do what it does, and it will find in a data-driven way the best person available right then and there. So we believe that actually, whereas everyone's concerned about automation and everyone's concerned about jobs going away, I think actually what we're doing is we're actually creating hundreds of millions of new jobs, and we're doing it in a way that it's task-based, so people can work when they want, and when they don't want to work, they can sleep. So I think it really is the right solution for the right time in history.
So basically, Nynja is one of the ways that we'll be putting an endless chain of tasks on the blockchain.
Exactly. And everything's based on smart contract. So payments guaranteed. All the reputation is there, again, on the blockchain, immutable. Anybody who wants to work on this decentralized platform, we can onboard them in a process that's objective and fair, and we can just, I don't want to say save the world, but save the world. But yeah, kind of just get people to work. And also,
don't say save the world.
Well, also if you look at a lot of places in the world that whether that's a failed state issue or a terrorism issue or this and that, there's a lot of people just have nothing to do and they have nothing to lose. As soon as you start plugging people into the global economy, and as soon as you give people a way to improve their life, get access to information, get access to the ability to earn a living, you find that actually people are pretty happy with the way things generally are, as long as they get to participate in it. Okay. But when they watch on TV and on the internet, half the world having a brilliant time, and they're kind of disconnected, that seeds resentment.
Oh, and I have these stats from the book The Coming Job War, that there's 7.6 billion people in the world. Only 5 billion are of the age that they could work. And 3 billion want a job. Right. Only 1.2 billion people have a job.
Right.
And so really this world is not a world where we have this equality of opportunity. So this sounds like an incredible thing if we can just disaggregate a lot of those jobs from having to be employed by a company to do them. Then we will be having a greater spreading around.
It's all supply chain and logistics, right? It's about getting the right work to the right person at the right time for the right reason at the right cost, and about putting that all together.
Very Aristotelian. I also got a sense, and it's not a bad word to say the word communism here in China, that this is kind of, it could be seen as, and I'm not speaking for any government or meaning any disrespect, but communism 2.0, in the sense that it goes back to early Marxism of from each according to his ability and to each according to his needs, because you basically say, here are my qualifications, here's my price, and then there's a lot of automatic permissionless matching that happens, and boom, you're ready to go.
But I think the from each according to his ability side of that, right? We can actually auto-assign somebody based on their ability to the right job for them. And let me use that as a segue, because what I think that does is it provides ownership over your own career, ownership over your job, right? It's permissionless. You can get to work whenever you want to get to work, and you own that. And let me use that as a segue into talking about ownership over the other parts of our lives. There are data and our money. And what our platform and blockchain in general can do to sort of empower individuals with ownership over those things.
So a number of years ago, I came up with what I think is the form of government of the future, and I call it equitocracy. E-Q-I-T-O, equitocracy. And the idea is government by owners. And so as we talk about consensus mechanisms that are also governance mechanisms or processes by making decisions within a government structure, then what I say is that ultimately, if you have more ownership, if you have more skin in the game, you should have more say. And one of the things that I was wondering about Nynja is, do you have this kind of, can this be an operating system or GOS, a government operating system for equitocracy, where you can have people who are owners basically have weighted says and stuff.
Right, and I think so where the communism analogy kind of falls apart is, the communism is where everything is shared by everybody, or the previous version of it where the state owns everything. I'm not a believer of that type of system. I think actually the purpose of blockchain and cryptocurrency and this whole revolution, if you will, is actually quite the opposite. It's about putting the ownership back into the hands of each individual person and giving them the freedom to kind of hustle their own life in a way. To participate. But in order for that type of system to work, you do have to kind of make it available to each according to what they can provide, right? So I think there's definitely something there. But you really hit on something with this equitocracy. I never heard that word before, but
I made it up.
I love it.
It's my neologism.
I love it, and what I love about it is that what it's showing is that, look, there are some ways of controlling the world where just the government says bam. There are other ways where we have democracy, but it's not one man, one vote. It's through a process that's been designed. But this whole one man, one vote thing, I mean, okay, it's interesting theoretically, but what you really want is the best people who are the most knowledgeable in whatever's being decided, and also who's being affected by the decision, to have the biggest part in that decision. And I think what blockchain technology does is it kind of tokenizes consensus, and I don't have a clear vision of it yet, but somehow consensus mechanisms have to evolve from the ether, if you will, and on the fly to be appropriate for whatever the task at hand is. So for example, if we're talking about environment and pollution, for sure, people who are scientists and have studied this their whole life, should absolutely have more of a say than people who have no idea. It shouldn't be a one man, one vote. On the other hand, maybe people who don't really have an idea, but they're going to be super affected by it because they're living on an island that's going to be underwater if we don't control ourselves. Well, maybe they have a say, even though they wouldn't normally have a say because they may not be experts, but they're affected by the decision. So how do we create consensus models and mechanisms that literally just dynamically change? And how do we even accept in this kind of AI world where nobody can even define, that you need this many votes in that house and this many votes in that in order to get something passed? How do we get to the point where it's so much more dynamic, yet people still trust it, right?
On a global scale, that's obviously an enormous challenge and an enormous vision, but we've had conversations about Nynja and the operating system serving as a platform for running organizations, for running businesses, and embedded within that sort of business operating templates that we've envisioned building are consensus
and even having a marketplace where you can sell business templates.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
that business template can include within it a consensus mechanism for decision making. For example, a board of directors has a certain set of governance, guidelines they have to follow, and there's protocols to follow. That can be programmed.
And I can see if to open a bank account, which a lot of people in crypto have an issue with, you need to have, at least in the US, articles of incorporation and bylaws. And it would be really nice to have an actual marketplace where you can buy articles of incorporation that you like and bylaws that you like, and then you can go in and say, well, based on you filling out this corporate aspirational profile, you might want to buy this article, these articles of incorporation, these bylaws, this board structure, this voting mechanism,
and we can build that into an operating system that you operate your organization upon.
Yeah, cost
using
a
our
corporate operating
communications
system.
tools and our consensus tools. You can actually custom design it from all of those options.
Right. And also, but instead of just paying a lawyer to write them for you, this marketplace that you can either buy outright or you can even use for free. But then every time you use it, you download it for free. But every time you use it, little micropayments go back to the you burn some tokens back to the person who provided this capability.
Yeah.
And maybe there's even a fee where you can fork it, so you can say, okay, I like what you've done, right? But I want to change some things for my needs. And actually, if you look at law firms, in fact, most of the future of law, in my opinion, is not lawyers kind of doing contracts, but it becomes programmer lawyers. Right, and they're seeding the world with various smart contracts. And when you use their smart contracts, because they're so professional and so complicated, and you can run really large organizations off of these really intense smart contracts that have all this governance mechanisms built in, that's actually the future of law, and that's how lawyers make money in the future.
So I have a question. What's the timing of Nynja? When is Nynja going to be available for which people? As I understand it today, that Nynja is used by a group of people, 68 people. And when does it expand? When does everybody get a shot at it?
Right. So right now we're in the alpha stage. So the people we have on are basically people who are either programming it, involved in our company, advisors like yourself, and anybody pretty much who understands that it's alpha and just wants to experience it and give their opinion. But in August, we moved to open, it's closed beta, but closed is quite open in the sense that pretty much anybody who signs up on our website can access the closed beta. We want hundreds of thousands of people, ideally, on it at the closed beta. Not because it's ready to go live, but because we want to test the system. We want to get people's input. We want to understand if people are struggling with the interface at all, or if something is not clear the way it works, or even just the scalability of the system. Just stress test the thing, right? So even though we're quite closed right now, just because it's so early, but in a few months, we actually want it to be quite wide. Now, what's the difference between closed beta and live? I would say two things. One is the tokens will be on a test net. So we can give everyone $1 million. Doesn't matter. It's not the real Nynja coin because the token generation will happen before we go live. So that's one important thing. The second thing is the freelance marketplace in terms of the actual workers on the platform. The functionality will be there, but the network of people will not really be there on day one because it's in beta. So the real difference between beta and go live is actually preparing all the people who came on as beta to really be there when it goes live, and with the real tokens and with the job opportunities already on day one. So that transition from beta to go live is very important.
And go live is?
Go live is the end of the year.
End of the year,
yep.
December.
That's right.
2019. Gents, I think we have to reach consensus on wrapping this up. The folks here
one man, one vote.
Need to move this on. Yeah. Can I get a second?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
All right. Thanks very much, guys. Good chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and also check out our Instagram at Global from Asia. Thanks again and see you soon.
E-commerce, like over 8 years.